Hey guys, today we are making 6 of my favorite apple recipes. Here in New England, many of us go apple picking every September and it has become a tradition in my family. It is so much fun, but we always come home with pounds and pounds of apples, so I've come up with some fun recipes to use them up. 3 sweet and 3 savory. Today we will be making French onion apple grilled cheese, sausage and apple pizza with sage, chicken apple burgers, caramel apple bark, apple cider donut cake, and my mom's apple crisp recipe. We've got lots to cover, so let's go get started. So starting out with our French onion and apple grilled cheese, I am thinly slicing 2 onions into little half moons here. And then I have a skillet over medium-low heat. And to that I am adding 2 tablespoons of butter and then melting that and adding in our onions. And what we're going to do here is caramelize them, just like we would for French onion soup. So I am going to season the onions with some salt and pepper. And we are just going to cook those, stirring occasionally for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to pour in a half a cup of apple cider, which is also something we always get at the apple orchard. And we are just going to cook that down, slowly adding the cider in batches until it evaporates. And then once they are getting nice and soft and golden and caramelized, we are going to add in 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme and 1 tablespoon of fresh sage, and cook that for an additional minute. Now at this point you could refrigerate these for a couple of days, you could freeze them, or we could just move right on to making the rest of our grilled cheese. So to assemble, I have 4 slices of sourdough bread. This recipe will actually make 4 grilled cheeses total, but I actually froze a bunch of the ingredients so that my husband and I could have this for lunch another day. So to the bottom slices of bread, I am adding some grated fontina cheese, some thin slices of apple, some of our caramelized onions, and then some shredded white cheddar cheese to the top. You could do all fontina, all white cheddar cheese, regular cheddar cheese. This recipe is very versatile and you can definitely make it your own. So then I'm just going to top the sandwiches with the other slice of bread, and we're going to butter that. And then the way I like to do grilled cheese is I will butter the top slice of bread and then I will melt butter in the skillet for the bottom. So over medium heat I have my skillet here with 2 little spots of melted butter that I'm going to place my sandwiches on. And we are just going to grill these for about 1.5 to 2 minutes per side, or until everything is nice and gooey and melty and the bread is crispy, crunchy. This is just one of those recipes that takes grilled cheese to a whole nother level. It is just so warm and satisfying, and all of those beautiful fall flavors and the apples and onions just complement each other perfectly. Not to mention adding the apple cider to the onions just really rounds everything out. And as I said, I froze the bread, the shredded cheese, and the caramelized onions all in a bag together, so that way we could make them at a later date. So now moving on to our sausage and apple pizza, I have 1 pound of ground Italian sausage. I chose mild. You could also use the hot version if you prefer. And we are just going to cook that, breaking it apart until it is nice and golden brown. And then I have 1 large pizza dough. I will have my recipe for my pizza dough linked down below, but store-bought works just fine. And I have that all stretched out here, and to the bottom I am adding some ricotta cheese. And then I am adding some shredded white cheddar cheese. And then on top of that, I'm going to sprinkle on our ground sausage. And then an apple that I julienned or cut into matchsticks. You could also leave them in half moon shaped as well. And then to the top I am adding some fresh sage and some fresh thyme. And we are going to bake this at 450 degrees for about 8 minutes or until it is nice and golden brown and bubbling. Now moving on to my chicken apple burgers. These are almost like a Thanksgiving burger, and you'll see why. So I have 1 pound of ground chicken in a bowl, and to that I am adding a 1/4 cup of finely chopped celery and 2 Granny Smith apples that I shredded. And then I'm going to add in some poultry seasoning. I did a blend of sage, garlic powder, celery salt, and thyme, as well as salt and pepper. And we're just going to mix that all together with some breadcrumbs. Now this will make anywhere from 4 to 6 burgers depending on the size. I always go by whatever buns that I have, so I made 4 large burgers and 2 smaller ones for my son, and that gives us 2 meals. These freeze really, really well. So we're just going to form them into patties and then dip them into more breadcrumbs, and that's going to get us a really crispy exterior. And then I have my skillet over medium-high heat with a little bit of olive oil, and we are just going to cook these for about 5 minutes per side, or until they are cooked to 165 degrees internally and are nice and golden brown. If you're unsure, you could always pop them in the oven for a couple of minutes. If you don't have a probe thermometer, I always do. It makes me nervous having raw chicken, even after cooking all these years. I always like to throw them in the oven for a couple minutes just to be safe. So then I have my buns slightly toasted here, and I like to add a little bit of mayo. But what makes these really yummy is some cranberry sauce. I like to use the whole berry kind, but jellied works as well. And that's what really gives this that Thanksgiving kind of gobbler sandwich feel. So, so good. The tanginess of the cranberry sauce and sweetness of the apples and the really crispy burger is just so amazing. You could even add some extra slices of apple on top for some crunch. Now moving on to our sweet recipes. So we are starting with caramel apple bark. I actually got inspiration for this from Pinterest, and I will link that down below. But I have 12 ounces of chocolate chips that I melted, and I added a little bit of oil in there just to thin it out. And I always just like to do it in the microwave every 15 seconds, just give it a stir until it's nice and smooth. So I have a parchment-lined sheet pan here, and I'm just spreading that chocolate out. And then to the top of that, I am adding 2 cups of crushed pretzels and 2 green apples that I diced. And now if you aren't going to be eating this immediately, I would soak the apples in a little bit of lemon juice before adding them to the bark, and that'll just keep them from browning over the next couple days. Now I have some caramel that I melted, about half a cup, and we're just going to drizzle that all over the top. And again, I melted the caramel in the microwave for about 15 seconds. And then we're taking a little bit more chocolate, I would say about 3 tablespoons, and drizzling that on top as well. And then we just want to place this in the refrigerator for about half an hour to an hour until it's nice and firm. And then we can cut it or break it into pieces. This is like my ultimate favorite kind of snack. I love sweet and salty anything, so it's right up my alley. It was so good. Just keep it in the fridge as a little like late night snack. It was so satisfying. Now moving on to the apple cider donut cake. I've been making this one for years. It's great to bring to get-togethers because it's super quick and easy, but it's just so incredibly tasty. Now this one does not have apples, but we are using apple cider, which is another thing that I always seem to have tons of sitting in the fridge after we go apple picking. But you could of course add some chopped up apples into this as well. So I have 1 box of yellow cake mix here. And to that I am adding a half a cup of unsweetened applesauce, 3/4 of a cup of apple cider, 3 large eggs, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of butter melted, as well as 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we're just going to give that a good stir. And then we are just going to pour that into a greased bundt pan. I kept saying bundt can. And we are going to bake that at 350 degrees for 40 to 45 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. And then we just want to let that cool in the pan for 10 minutes before flipping it over onto a wire rack to cool completely. So now for the cake topping, you want to melt a 1/4 cup of butter, and we are just going to brush that all over the outside of the cake. And then in a small bowl, I combined a half a cup of sugar and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we are just going to sprinkle that all over the cake where we put the melted butter. And you may need to use your hands to kind of stick it to the sides of the cake. This cake is such a crowd pleaser. It genuinely tastes like a fresh apple cider donut. It's just so tender and, dare I say, moist. I know, I don't like that word. And that crispy, like crunchy sugar coating and the melted butter, oh my gosh. Just amazing. Now moving on to my mom's apple crisp recipe. We had this every September growing up. It is still just one of those recipes that just like warms my soul. So I have about 3 cups of thinly sliced apples in my baking dish here. You could use an 8x8, you could use a 9x13. It just varies depending on how thin of a layer of apples you have. And then in a large bowl, I am combining the topping ingredients, which is 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar, a half a cup of flour, a half a cup of oats, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, and then you stir in 1/3 cup of softened butter, and you just want to make that into like a crumble. And anything left over that's dry, just sprinkle all over the top. And then we're just going to bake that at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes, or until the apples are tender and the topping is golden brown. The juices from the apples just really melt into the extra topping there, and it just makes the crunchiest, sweetest apple crisp. As I said, I looked forward to this every September. It was our tradition. We'd go apple picking, we'd make a big batch of apple crisp, and it is so good warm with vanilla ice cream or whipped cream. Easily my favorite way to use up apples in a recipe. So of course I had to save it for last. Well, I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making these 6 awesome apple recipes. I can't believe it's already September, it's feeling like fall, and I'm so excited to go apple picking and remake all of these recipes again. If you give any of them a try or just want to say hi, leave me a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.